Hey, I'm Dr. Tom Greiner, and you are listening or watching Power to Create Wealth. We want to bring you wisdom and courage to start your own business, to be successful in whatever you're doing in life. There's wisdom for you, and there's a better future, a better hope, and abundance. Today, we're going to dial in once again to Matt Westfield, and he is an expert in starting businesses and teaching entrepreneurs how to be successful. Today, he's going to be speaking about value. Do you really add value to people with your product and your service? You need feedback to know that you're doing that and that what you have is something real. And one of the values that you have is what you have faster, better, or cheaper. Today, we're going to answer those questions so you can be better honed at how to be successful in whatever you're doing.
Welcome everybody, and thanks for being here, and welcome back to the Power to Create Wealth. I'm Matt Westfield, entrepreneur in residence for the University of Nevada, Reno, USA, as well as entrepreneur in residence for this beautiful facility here at Adams Hub for Innovation in Carson City, Nevada. We're coming to you again from Carson City with all of the modules on what it takes to really build a company. So thanks for being here. Tonight we want to talk about the considerations for your business in terms of, it's really simply, when I have entrepreneurs, I challenge them, and tonight I want to challenge you. Is the problem you're solving real? This is a big deal. When we start a business, and we often want to begin, our idea begins with either an idea in our head, an observation, somebody we've seen who has a problem or an issue, or some kind of an opportunity that we see. But what we want to know is that opportunity real? And how do we know it's real? And that means that we've got to be able to understand, if we identify a potential problem or an opportunity, we've got to make sure that that opportunity and problem are replicated several times. If it's just one person with that problem, or I personally have that problem, it doesn't mean anybody else does. So we have to get our ego out of the way. And as early as we can, we've got to find out if we can validate what we believe to be a problem that we can solve and an opportunity to make money. Those two things need to be in parallel. One of the things I recommend to all my entrepreneurs, young and old, and one of the things I do when I'm building companies, which I'm doing right now, I'm not just telling you how to, we're building new high-tech companies right now. And when we do that, we want to get to the partners and the customers as early as we can and validate. Get to the experts. Validate the fact that other people have this problem. Other companies have this problem. So remember, we've talked in the past in other modules about business to business and business to consumer. We've talked about what we call value proposition, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So again, my challenge, and I did this with some students at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas last night who are coming up with new companies. How do you know the problem you're solving is real, and how do you validate that? There are a number of ways. And one of the ways I like to validate is by looking for what we call empirical data. And empirical data is everywhere. And this empirical data would maybe say, when somebody says, Matt, how do you know this is true? And why do you think this is a problem? I like to be able to say that I'm not saying this is a problem. The World Bank says this is a problem. And you may have heard me say this before. I want to readdress it because it's so darned important. Before we commit to start a company, we want to do as much as we can to validate that that company we're starting is real, the problem we're solving is real, and we can solve it for a reasonable price where we can make money. There are times where we come up with solutions and they're so expensive, they don't solve the problem. Not in a way that somebody would actually pay for it. I was in virtual reality 30 years ago. To build a virtual world 30 years ago took a minimum of $1 million. There were very few corporations in the world 30 years ago that would spend $1 million or more on visualization. Okay, we needed a lot of equipment. It was very expensive, so it was so we had a great solution, but people and companies couldn't afford it. So here we are 30 years later, and virtual reality is starting to become mainstream. It's starting to become viable. It's starting to become affordable. So is your solution one that can be replicated, that many people have a problem, and can you do it at an affordable price? When we're doing very cutting edge and leading edge applications, that's a big deal. We might be able to solve the problem, but can we solve it at a good price? I'm looking at building a new fire retardant right now. And we don't know if we can build this fire retardant and it can protect people more inexpensively or more adequately or at a higher level than now. We're doing all these experiments and we're doing them as inexpensively as we can, but we know that if we can build a better fire retardant, there's a market for it if we can do it at a right price. Can you build your company where you're solving problems or providing a product or a service for people affordably and you can still make money? This is a big deal. So how do we find out if what we're doing, if the problem we're solving is real? And how do we go about validating that, which is a big deal? Well, one of the things we want to do is we want to find out if that is by looking at our value proposition. There's another way of calling this our niche differentiator. What differentiates us from the other companies or people doing these things? And again, this value proposition is the foundation of your business. It's the foundation of your ability to create a company and be able to make money. Okay? So if you see others doing similar to what your idea is for a business, or you've seen others doing it and you think you can do it better, understand that better, and we talked about this in another module, what is better? Is it service? Is it product? Understand, where does your value lie to your customer? Where does your value lie to your partners? Okay, and is it enough for you to make money and support your family? If not, don't do it. It's not worth it. But we need to find something that really fills a void, and that's your value proposition. Filling that void at a viable price where people were willing to pay you to do it. Okay? So do not take this lightly. This is a really, really big deal. And it's the foundation of your business. Understanding how your business is different than the other businesses out there. Because that then turns to what? Turns to your ability to market. And we're going to talk about that in another module. But for right now, I want you to focus on proving and validating that you have a great business that solves people's or companies' problems, whether you're business to business or business to consumer, and that you can solve those problems at a reasonable price for them where you can still make a profit. Because after all, if we can't make a profit, why are we in business? We're in business to make money and to support ourselves and to feed our family and to help our community. That's what a business does. So I want you to think about really, really wholeheartedly, is the problem you're solving real? And how do you know? Well, we find out by going out and talk to people. Do we have one more than one value proposition? You may remember I have a module talking about faster, better, cheaper. Pick two. If we're faster and better, we're probably not cheaper. If we're cheaper, we're probably not faster and better. And depending on what our market wants, that's okay. But you need to understand early what your potential customers are really looking for. And can you provide that? And again, provide it at a good price where they get value and you make money. That is the equilibrium we need to find. One side or the other doesn't work. Do we have good value and for the customer, and can we make money? If we can combine those two things early and find out from potential customers, and ask a potential customer, if I could provide this for you at this price, would you give me your business? I have a great question that I love to ask potential customers. When they don't seem too excited about my company or my product or my service, one good question is to ask, what's it going to take to get your business? Now, if we ask that question, there's no yes or no, they can't blow us off. And we may find out that they have a contract with somebody else. And if we didn't ask that specific question, we would never find out. I had this happen to me in business. I was having lunch. I had bought 3 lunches for this person. That gets expensive, and I didn't want to buy him a 4th lunch. So I sat across the table like I'm looking at you now, and I said, Tom, what's it going to take to get your business? Do you know what he said to me? He said, you can't have the business. I'm in a contract with somebody else. I would have never known if I hadn't have asked. And I said to him, Tom, when's that contract up? He said, it'll be up in October. I said, perfect. I'll see you in September. So by the time October comes, we have the deal in place. And we shook hands, and that actually happened. So now I want you to think, what's it going to take for you to get the business of the market that you believe, that you've identified, that is perfect for your product or your service? Whether it's consumers, it's kids, whether it's businesses, it's little businesses or medium or large businesses. To identify our customer and our target market is critical. We have to identify the target market and show them the value. So right now I want to talk about the value, and in another module, I'm going to talk about taking that value and applying it to market, okay? So, what are your value propositions? List them. List them based on faster, better, cheaper, okay? List them. If you're faster, again, better. You believe that everyone else in this particular industry is slow, you can get something to them faster. People around the world know we pay for faster. We do. We pay for it. And I've mentioned this before. Are you better? What is better? Tell them why you're better. Whatever better, because better can mean a number of different things, as we've talked about in other modules. Okay? But again, you need to be specifically able to identify your value proposition and how it applies to that particular customer. All right? So don't take this lightly. And again, if we're going to sell in business to business, what's important to a business? There are 4 things important to a business owner. So if I have a product or a service for a business, I want to think of 4 ways that I can create value for that business. I want to be able to make them money. I want to be able to save them money. I want to be able to make them time. I want to be able to save them time. Now, what are the differences between that? We know what making money is. We all want to make money. We know what saving money is, don't we? Saving, if I can save a customer money, that's awesome, okay? And if I can save them time, what is making time? Making time is an extension of saving time. Making time is when you see someone doing the same thing over and over, maybe for hours in a day. And that's not helping their company if they're doing this repeated act. If we can automate something for them and free them up to go spend their time making money for the company and not doing this repetitive act, whatever it is, this repetitive task, then we're freeing them up, we're automating the task and freeing them up to go make the company money. And that's good for everyone. That's good for you, that's good for the company, that's good for the employee, isn't it? So, in business to business, make me money, make me time, save me time. If you have a B2B, I want you to address those. Which of those do you solve? Do you make them money? Do you save them money? Do you make them time or do you save them time? And again, maybe it comes back to faster, better, cheaper. Which of those things do you do in context? Okay? If you can pinpoint those in a B2B, you're killing it, and you will get customers, and you will get customers to sign up early perhaps and start buying. Maybe you can do pre-sales. It's a great way to make money without having to borrow money or get investors. Get pre-sales. I'm taking orders right now to deliver next month. And what happens when you take orders? We get a deposit. When we get a deposit, we get cash flow. Now I don't have to go ask people, investors or banks, for money. I have my customers paying and building my business because of the value I create for them. And this is a big, big concept. Now remember, the last thing is B2C. And we've talked about this in other modules too. The difference is there's a 5th factor. Still can make money, make time, save time. But in B2C, what is the real thing? Emotion. Look how beautiful it is. Look how big it is. Look how light it is. Look how heavy it is. All those things strike emotion. Look how fast it was. Wow, that was quick. Wow, look how good so all of the things in emotion that we can appeal to the consumer go above those 4 parts in business to business. So in business to business, there's no emotion. Business to consumer, we can play on that emotion. We still have to have other values, other value propositions to support the emotion, but let's appeal to the emotion of the buyer. Tonight we want to talk about primary market and secondary market. We've spoken about value proposition and how to create value. Well, once you've created value for your for the consumer or the business, depending on what market you're in, we've got to understand now for whom are we creating value in these markets. So one of the things I like to do is I like to figure out, where does my value in my value proposition, for whom does it lie? For whom does it lie if I'm in a B2B or in a B2C? So we want to think about our business in terms of primary market and secondary market. And not all companies have primary and secondary markets, but most do. And if not, within your market, you have set market segments. Now, what does that mean? It may mean kids 0 to 2 years old, babies. Maybe it means toddlers 2 to 4 years old. Maybe it means just kids getting ready for school. Maybe it's school-age kids. Maybe it's adult. Maybe it's kids out of school. Maybe it's adults or elderly people. We need to understand if we have a primary market and secondary. So if you have your business, you have your idea, you have your values you've identified, for whom are those values most important? That's your primary market. Now, in some cases, we'll have a product or service which will be a high value. So our product or service isn't for everyone, okay? And we need to understand that maybe our product and service is for people who have a little extra money. Maybe it's a recreational product. Maybe it's something that's nice to have, good to have, but not necessary. If it's something that's necessary, then that should set really high on the primary market. So one of the things we need to understand, again, is to really look at our primary market. What is your market? Is it kids? Is it adults? Is it girls? Is it boys? Is it people of a certain economic status? Maybe it's people who live in a village as opposed to people who live in a city. Okay? If it's a company, maybe if you're a B2B, are you helping them with delivery? Are you bringing value to them? Are you a vendor? Are you making products for the business? Are you creating apps? What is it you're doing? Is it high tech or low tech? If it's low tech, you're going to understand that maybe a lot of the folks you're working with don't have a lot of high technical skills, but you can help them with what they're doing. If it's high tech, you're likely going to be helping people better their lives through technology. All right? So when we identify our markets, it's important to take a snapshot of the market and then figure it out and figure out, where does this market lie? Now that's true in, as I said, B2B and B2C. If I can understand my primary market, then I can also identify what's called my secondary market. And my secondary market, it could be interesting. It could be a segment of the first market where I delineate. Maybe I have a product for kids in 4, 5, 6 years old, and I have another version of it for kids that are a little bit older. Okay? Maybe I have something to drink that's really good, tastes good for kids, but it's good for them too. Okay? So those values all are important. All right? And when we understand our primary market and our secondary market could be, like I said, tangential, could be completely separate. Let me give you a quick case study from somebody I worked with years ago. And what happened was very interesting. We were working with this gentleman on an invention that he had, and he came to us with another idea, and we couldn't understand. And basically his idea was a product that fits on a door, because in the US, and I'm sure where you live too, and anywhere in the world, especially in businesses, we have doors that automatically close. Sometimes it's for fire prevention or whatever, but the doors automatically close. And if you've ever seen those doors, they can be big, heavy doors, especially in offices. And if they close, guess what? They can smash fingers and things. So this gentleman had invented a product that sits on the threshold of the door and keeps the door from closing, okay, if that makes sense. So what it does is you fold it down, so when the door closes, it stops the door from closing. And when you put it up, the door can close. Now, why did he invent this? Because apparently in America, 350,000 children every year get their hands closed in these doors. Of that number, we found out 15,000 of them, through some statistics, 15,000 actually have their fingers amputated. Now, I don't know about you, but I had no idea this was a problem. How did this gentleman know this was a problem? It happened to his kid, and his kid lost his finger. So he came up with an idea to have this flap that folds down on doors so it won't close if you don't want it to. Well, as we started studying this and we brought in parents, parents loved it. But what were else for parents? We had parents in their 30s and 40s also taking care of their elderly family members, 3 generations in the family. We found out that elderly people were also getting caught in these doors. Maybe their hand or their finger may not have cut it off, but it could hurt them. And for elderly people, that could be damaging. So what did we find? We find there's a market for kids. We find that some people take care of elderly people who don't have a lot of strength and can't open the door. So we want to keep that door cracked so they can get in and out. Well, sure enough, we talked to some of those people, and what do we find? Those people, some of them have pets. And they may have a dog or a cat that gets caught behind a door and can't get in or get out, and that causes other problems. Also, suppose there was an emergency and somebody couldn't get in or out the door, the doors are closing. So this little product could actually work for dogs, for kids, and for the elderly people. Now, in America, we sell those products in different places. We have stores for elderly people, we have stores for pets, and we have stores for kids. Those products are being marketed to different people for different reasons. But you need to understand your packaging and your market. You need to understand if you have markets. How did we find out? By talking to people, by talking to potential customers, by talking to people who've had the problem, by finding statistics in places to show that this is a problem more than just what we have and what we see. So it's really important, ladies and gentlemen, to identify your primary and your secondary markets and understand that your product or your service could be beneficial to more than one group. And if it is, you may find that even though you have a primary market, you can go to a secondary market first. Okay, and this was true of a company I started years ago, which had to do with plants and landscape. We wanted to do commercial properties, but to get a reputation, we started by working with consumers who had the money and could afford to us to come in and help their environment look beautiful. Their plants, their entries, their indoor plants, their outdoor plants. Once we started doing that, we were introduced to someone who ran a commercial property. Turns out he ran several commercial properties. He saw the work we did on that. We then had commercial properties, different than people's houses. The commercial properties were our primary market, but it was easier to get into the secondary market, which was homeowners. So that's what we did. So think about it in those terms, whether it's a product or a service. How do we find a primary market and a secondary market? How do we leverage that to get our reputation and build our company? Ladies and gentlemen, building companies is about relating to customers and having them relate to you. And once you make that relationship solid, they will refer you to others. If you take care of business, is about people taking care of people. It's not about my app or my product or my service. It's about my app or my product or my service solving a problem, and solving a problem for the most appropriate market. And once we've done that, and we can tie that value to that market, to those customers, at the price they can afford, we now have a company. Okay? We now have a company that we can grow and we can leverage through the people we've already served to get people we wish to serve. And that can happen through testimonies. That can happen through introductions. There's all kinds of ways that we can leverage the good work we're doing for our customers to get more of them. We'll also see which parts of our market make us more money. I can tell you right now, when I went from homeowners to condominium complexes and large commercial buildings, we make more money. And that's been wonderful. These last few years, we've been able to make more money in this company by focusing on our primary market, which we knew would always be more profitable, but we had to get our reputation in our secondary market. So, what's your primary market? What's your secondary market? And do you have what's called a tertiary market? Tertiary market could be a third market that's not as profitable maybe as the primary and secondary, but it makes us some money. Okay? A tertiary market could be picking up little jobs on the side when you have these contracts for your big players. A tertiary market could be one, again, that you only serve them once in a while. Or when you serve them, the products are a little bit less expensive or the service is less. So let's understand how we can serve our markets. Let's find out. And finding out is going out and asking questions, talking to the potential customer, asking them, what's it going to take to get your business? And having them tell you honestly and say, please be honest. I value your opinion. People will tell you what they're thinking if you ask. If you don't ask, you won't know. Many companies fail, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't ask the right questions of the customer. And if you really want to be an entrepreneur and really build a company, you have to be able to talk to the customer on some level, even if that's not the thing you like to do. Even if you'd rather be behind the scenes, you've got to find a way to communicate with the customer and have them communicate with you honestly, professionally, and with empathy and with respect. That's how you will find your customers. You will find your marketplace. Now, when we do that, we've now got to create a message. What is the message? This goes back to our original value proposition of faster, better, cheaper, save me money, save me time, make me time. And then we don't have any money. We've got to come up with ways to be able to market them in a very inexpensive way. And so I'm going to touch base on this, and we'll have another module on what's called guerrilla marketing. So I have an idea for a company. I have customers waiting for me, but I don't have any money. What do? I don't want to borrow money because then I owe somebody money. I don't want to give them a piece of my company because then they make the profit, some of the profit I don't. I want to figure out ways when I build companies to have my customers help me by paying me or prepaying me or giving me a deposit so I can have cash flow to build the rest of my company. That way I don't owe anybody, I own the company, I run the company, I make the decisions. When I have investors or people lend me money, then guess what? I owe them, I have to report to them, and actually, in some ways, they own part of my company, whether it's the debt or the equity. And I prefer not to give people pieces of my company. So I look for guerrilla marketing techniques, and guerrilla marketing is simple ways that we can do advertising to our customers. Maybe it's flyers or little stickers. Love little stickers. Little sticker, as long as you don't stick it in the wrong places. But these are wonderful ways to get the word out and to get people to know you. Funny little gimmicks, okay? Little business cards with maybe a coupon on the back. How cool is that? A little coupon, 10% off. So we're gonna get further into markets and marketing and ways to create customer excitement. And we'll be doing that future. But right now, I wanna know from you, what is your primary market? What's your secondary market? Do you have a tertiary market? And how do you know? What is the value that your primary market expects from you? What's the value of your secondary market? Are they the same? I don't think so. I want you to think about it, challenge the people around you, and find out how can you best serve your customer segments and your primary, secondary, tertiary market. Thanks, everybody. I'm Matt Westfield. We are Entrepreneurs Assembly, and we look forward to seeing you next time.